This is my version of Hellboy. Like, I've always wanted to do something Hellboy-ish. Some guy or girl is off dealing with paranormal problems. When I discovered French-Canadian folktales, kind of when it all clicked for me because there's so many different stories about the devil in French Canada or just different creepy Catholic traditions. Hi, I'm Matt McGrath, and I'm the co-creator, writer, of the Acts of Louis Debraz. You can find me at stupidmatt at bluesky.social, my social media. You are watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We're joined today by a multi-talented individual. He's the creator of an amazing new French-Canadian-based story called Louis Debraz. We're joined by the ever-talented Matt McGrath. How are you doing today?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. For those that don't know anything about yourself as a creative person, tell us who you are and what you're bringing to Two Geeks Talking today.
Yeah, so my name is Matt McGrath, and I'm a comic book writer from Toronto. I've been doing this almost 10 years now, so I kind of got my start doing short comics for various anthologies. Gothic Tales of Haunted Futures is one of them, one of my early ones. Yeah, I did that for a while, and then kind of got the itch to do my own stuff. So from there, I co-created and wrote a series called ID10T Error. Otavio Colino, who's a artist based out of Brazil. So we did that for 3 issues, and it went on for took like 7 or 8 years to complete. That was a sci-fi comedy about a guy whose computer crashes on him in college and screws up all his final assignments and exams and derails his life. He spends the next decade or so turning that laptop into a fully sentient AI so he can get revenge on it and torture it and destroy it. So yeah, that was fun. It kind of gives you an idea of the kind of weird stories that I do. Today I'm bringing a passion project of mine for a while. The story's been in the back of my mind for, I don't know, at least since I started writing comics, and just kind of a nebulous idea of it, probably even longer. It's called Louis Debraz. It's based off of French-Canadian folktales. The co-creator and the artist of the book is John Berg. I've done a short comics with in the past. He's done a couple of covers for me. This is the first time we're working on a full-length comic together, which is really exciting. He's also a Canadian writer and artist based in the Newmarket area. French Canadian folklore. This story is based off of a very famous French Canadian legend called Rose Latulipe, otherwise known as The Devil Comes to Dance. There's been many versions of it over the years. Basically, it's families having a party on Mardi Gras, so the day before Lent begins, and a mysterious stranger comes to the door and asks if he can come in, have a dance. He's particularly drawn to this young woman who is the daughter of the household, and sweeps her off their feet and dances with her. As the story goes on, they realize that this mysterious stranger, his horse outside, all the snow is melting around it. When the guy's dancing, flames burst from his feet. They clue into the fact that, oh, this is the devil that's coming. He's trying to steal this young girl away, drag her to hell. From there, there's like many different variations where, the girl is saved or the girl is damned. That's the basis of this story. It takes that legend and kind of adds in this other character who's Louis Debraz, who's my version of Solomon Kane or like a Hellboy, just this traveling mysterious guy who's for some reason tracking the devil across lower Canada for some unknown grievance. He ends up at the storehouse and finds the devil there, and fisticuffs ensue from there.
As long as it wasn't looking for a golden fiddle, or is that like a couple of centuries later?
Golden Fiddle. Yeah, that's probably around the same time period. I think the Golden Fiddle, more like European or something. It all kind of bleeds in together. But yeah, there's probably plenty of myths about the fiddles and the devil in French Canada.
That was the one thing I found interesting is about the legend of Rose Tulip or the dancing devil there. The fact that there's like over 200 known versions of this particular legend is rather amazing, and tellings and retellings and everything along that line. But, how did you know what strands to keep and which to discard when you wanted to put your own mark on this particular tale?
Yeah, it's a good question. That's what kind of took me a while to actually sit down and write this because I wanted to read so many different versions of it. It was kind of hard to track down a lot of different versions of it. I don't know, French-Canadian folklore isn't as accessible in the English-speaking world as I'd like it to be. So yeah, funnily enough, like one of the versions that I based my one off of was this children's book that we got my kids for Christmas a couple of years ago. That's written in French, which was kind of interesting. Where Rose kind of takes more of a role against defeating the devil. She's not more passive and the damsel in distress. In this version, she figures out herself what's going on and finds a way to kind of defeat the devil herself. Yeah, that's one of the versions I borrowed from. I just kind of searched everywhere. There's like a play that I found that I read and some ideas from there. There's plenty of different, can't remember who the most famous version of it comes from. It might be like called The Golden Dog or something, but there's a bunch of different adaptations of it in different books over the years, modern adaptations I read, and so I just kind of consumed as much as I could until I kind of got an idea of like where to take it, like what's the pieces that I like and what's the parts that, are kind of not interesting to me and just kind of smushing it all together.
You're collaborating with John here when it comes to this particular project, which is wonderful to see. I always love collaborations between artists and writers there. But when you both sat down to work on this project, what was the process? Was there something that he had to draw that just kind of stuck out to him? Something you had to write that set the tone for it?
Yeah, it's interesting because like when I first wrote this script, I really wanted it to be based on like silent films. So I wanted to have that silent film look and feel where you'd actually have, no in-panel dialogue. All the dialogue would have been on a separate black panel as like written text where it would have that intertitle look to it. And then yeah, I guess we're just with talking through John, like he wasn't as jazzed about that. And then I kind of tried to do a version of it that didn't have that intertitles and loosened up a little bit. It's very hard to get in all the action. On one page, you might just have three panels, and the other three panels would just be black, purely dialogue. Kind of loosened up the structure a little bit, made it a little more engaging and flowed a bit better. That was one of the things that changed about the project with talking through John. I think his first sketch that he did of Louis that I kind of just spitballed some stuff off of him. Like I didn't want him to be the your dashing leading man type character. I wanted to be more overweight, have like a mustache, not that attractive. I think I gave him the inspiration of like Matheson, the cook from The Bear. That's kind of the yeah, what to base it off of. Totally hit it out of the park with just the first sketch. So that was really exciting to see the kind of it take shape from there.
Talk about this Kickstarter in itself, because Kickstarters are like a 30-day marathon. It's not like a quick process here. What's your plan for this upcoming Kickstarter, especially with this amazing book?
Going to keep the goal relatively low. So it'll hopefully get funded faster. Still planning out like the certain rewards, but it's definitely going to be typical physical and digital version of the book. There's no variant covers for this one, but we are doing a risograph print that you can upgrade to. Yeah, I think it's one of the coolest things what we're going to do and what like really works well with my other campaigns is have the opportunity to be drawn into the comic. Like a big part of the plot of this book is it's at a dance at a party, so there's lots of opportunities for background people and people with little one-off lines to pop up in here and there. So there's going to be a lot of space to add in some cool comic cameos, and those are always a lot of fun to do. And then we'll probably have a back catalog of my previous work, and John also has a comic that he's self-publishing right now called Scabs, like a dark fantasy book that's really cool. So I think there'll be digital versions of that to grab as well.
It's amazing with these campaigns, like how much you can bundle from a digital perspective and showcase so many new and different comics, especially if you have like a theme for your particular campaign as well. If you happen to do those
Yeah.
in packages, and it's just
Yeah.
getting these comics into a new set of eyes and a new audience.
Yeah, digital bundles and books are kind of the most relaxed part of doing this, especially like with past work. When the campaign ends, you're just basically sending off a link to somebody and taking the money for that. Yeah, it scales well. Like it's nice to have that not intensive part of it.
You can just focus on the book and away you go.
Yeah.
I am curious here. The traditional outcomes are stark when it comes to these types of legends here, being dragged to hell or being saved or being sent to a covenant. What questions about choice, punishment, or agency were you most interested in exploring or complicating in your version?
Choice. Well, I think the interesting thing about French Canada in particular in their folklore is the devil is a character that comes up a lot, and just the Catholic faith was kind of omnipresent. I mean, it probably was everywhere at this time, but even more so, I guess, in French Canada and really into the modern era, not until like the 1960s and the Quiet Revolution was when the government became a lot more secular. Before then, the Catholic Church had a huge influence on, the public sector life. The schools were all Catholic based. Government policies were based off of a lot of Catholic beliefs and stuff like that. So yeah, it was kind of a very omnipresent and a little bit oppressive presence. So that kind of comes into this a little bit where the devil's the villain, but also the Catholic Church and God himself is a little bit cruel as well. One of the more famous beliefs, yeah, I guess folk traditions in French Canada is loup garou, the loup garous. Those were basically werewolves, but it wasn't like your typical folkloric werewolf that we all kind of know today, where you'd have to be bitten by another werewolf and then you transform in a full moon. With loup garous, you'd be cursed because you committed some great sin in your past, or maybe it's been like 7 years gone to church and taken the sacrament. So that's what changes you into this monster. You weren't necessarily turned into a wolf. It could be other kind of animals as well. There's this kind of, I don't know, cruelty, the beliefs of not adhering to the Catholic traditions and being punished for pretty inconsequential religious misdemeanors. That kind of shadow is going to pervade this series if this one does well and we do more. I have more ideas. There's one called The Midnight Mass of the Phantom Priest, where a priest is cursed and dies and is cursed to keep doing this mass over and over until he's dead because he went through his mass a little bit too quickly than I guess God would have liked. Yeah, that's basically kind of where I'm going with this. The unfairness, the devil, but also God himself.
It's no wonder that French Canadians use the parts of the church to swear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. I hear my partner's from Quebec. She lived in Sherbrooke, so I've heard my fair share of French Canadian swears.
As a storyteller today, how do you keep the original cautionary tale flavor without turning the story into a lecture that modern readers will just tune out?
I guess because I that's one of the things that I wasn't interested in with the story was the cautionary tale part. So I told you like I picked and choose the stuff that I was interested in and kind of tossed out the other stuff. And the cautionary tale part of it was one of the bits I tossed out. Because yeah, in a lot of the versions, she's just very promiscuous and whatever, wants to go have fun and blah 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 blah. Ends up with the devil and almost gets damned for all eternity because of that. So yeah, the moral of the story there was don't be promiscuous and up for I don't know loose, and I guess that was the implication is don't go running off with strange men that you don't know. So yeah, with this version, she's a lot more independent. Her deal is in this version is she's kind of sick of living at home. She doesn't want to have this life of marrying this man she's not really interested in. She wants to go off and go to university and see the world and become a writer, but she has no path to that. And she's kind of stuck at home with her parents and meeting this devil and kind of being swept off her feet by him. He kind of makes all these promises of, come join me and I can show you anything you want. And so that temptation comes into play. And then when she realizes what's really going on, she hatches her own plan to kind of outwit the guy and goes her own way. That's I wasn't really concerned much with a moral per se. I was more interested in the character and how is she going to become an active character who's interesting. Yeah, we'll see where that takes her.
But writing in collaboration with John with his art, writing has its own rhythm, art has its own visual rhythm. There's paneling, there's pacing. How did that work out when it came to the flow of the actual story and your telling of it with both your writing and John's amazing art?
Good question. That's still something we're working out. We're still pretty in the early phases of getting this thing off the ground. So yeah, he's pretty much finished the cover, which looks amazing. Like it's exactly what I had pictured. And yeah, right now we're in the process. I think he's doing finished thumbnails and he's doing the pencils for the first 5 pages. I'm pretty loose, like with my writing. I'm not really beholden to everything that I write on the page. It has to be just so. I like kind of artists to push back and be like, you have 5 panels on this page, but really I can do it in 4 and, go from there. Yeah, and it's just been interesting. Like so far, like he's added some panels and be like, oh, I think we need to draw this moment out a little bit more and I go with it. And then based off that, I kind of insert some more dialogue into it to kind of fill out the context of that. Yeah, it's always fun. The script is kind of just a roadmap. It's not the end product in itself, and it's just the starting point of the story of the finished comic. Yeah, the writing process doesn't really ever end until you get the final letters and it's ready to go off to the printer. Yeah, I kind of write on the fly a lot. Once something actually gets on the page and we realize the script doesn't work, we're like, oh shoot, okay, I have to figure this out, the story beat, and maybe change some things and change some dialogue, and it happens a lot.
You have to have flexibility. I mean, unless you've already banged out your script and got it prepped and ready to go, and then it's like handing it off to John. But I mean, that comes back to communication between yourself as a writer and him as an artist, and figuring out what's the best overall visuals
Yeah.
for this particular comic. And I mean, unless you were like totally locked in and like you didn't want to be a co-collaborator or a co-creator, then you probably would have tried to draw it and write everything yourself.
Yeah, no, nobody would buy that. Nobody would want that. A comic that I drew, just be stick figures, and not even good ones.
It's the most awkward game of French-Canadian Pictionary you've ever seen. Um,
My 8-year-old son would probably do a better comic than I could do.
we're in pre-launch here for the Kickstarter. This is a traditional French Canadian legend that many people from Canada as well as all over the world probably have not heard of unless they're from Quebec. For readers who have never heard of this particular legend or your comic, like how do you pitch it?
The comic, I think there I have a better in, which is this is my version of Hellboy. Like I've always wanted to do something Hellboy-ish, something with some guy or girl who just kind of wanders around the country or some landscape and is off dealing with paranormal problems. So yeah, like that was kind of the template I had. It's pretty broad. I just want to do my Hellboy. When I discovered these French Canadian folk tales, probably through my partner. I don't remember exactly how I came across them, but it was probably through her. It's kind of when it all clicked for me because there's so many different stories about the devil in French Canada or just with different creepy Catholic traditions. So yeah, like a guy who kind of has some beef with the devil and he's wandering around Canada hunting the devil down. It seemed like a pretty good template for me where you can have one character who's the kind of focus that can weave into all these different really cool folk tales. That's kind of my pitch. It's a little bit folk hero and a little bit pulp hero. It's my version of Hellboy, and it's also kind of like a French Canadian Solomon Kane. This guy, Louis Debraz, is just going to be always encountering these supernatural problems and running into the devil quite often. And he has some beef with the devil, but we don't know what it is. People have heard of this guy, and they've heard different stories of why he's hunting down the devil. Like maybe the devil cheated him in a card game, or took his wife or took his family. There's a lot of theories, but nobody really knows why. Yeah, that's kind of my hook into it. You're exploring a lot of cool different folk traditions through this one guy, and yeah, and the fact that it's Canadian. Like I'm a proud Canadian. I like telling Canadian stories. Any opportunity I have to set a story in Canada, I will take it.
So, what's the most misunderstood aspect about Canadian tales or folklore that people who don't follow Canada misunderstand?
I don't think there's anything misunderstood per se. It's just not known. I don't think Canadian, even in Canada, Canadian stories aren't highlighted enough. Like maybe comics is getting better. Probably literary novels has always been pretty strong, but I think we all know like film and television are kind of lacking, and it's getting better. Like there's a lot of really cool Canadian films that I've seen in the past few years, but yeah, it's just it doesn't get enough attention in this kind of American dominated entertainment industries. I don't think there's anything misunderstood per se. It's just nobody's had the opportunity to be introduced to these stories. That's another purpose of this book is to bring these really neat stories to different audiences.
It'd be nice if there was any grants for comics or anything that, the Ontario government or federal government itself could, I don't know, assist.
I'm working on it. Yeah. I mean, there's not ones for comics per se, but there are definitely grants out there. Like I've applied to a bunch for my different comic projects as I try and ramp things up and realize that I can't just pay for all this stuff out of pocket, and Kickstarter's only going to get me so far. So yeah, I'm going to see if Mark Carney can pony up a couple of bucks to for me to make my weird comics. So we'll see. TBD. Yeah, I've been applying. I haven't gotten any money yet, but that's the thing. You just got to keep applying and keep going until you finally get something.
The format of this particular medium, we've seen this legend itself in various formats from musicals to plays to film and TV. How did you decide on your format specifically for this between a comic, graphic novel? You could have even written this as prose for that matter. Why comics in this particular medium?
There's no real reason other than I make comics and I like making comics and I like reading comics, so I wanted to make it into a comic. Yeah, it's funny you should mention prose because I've kind of been dabbling with. I'm really into reading Conan stories right now, and especially the Savage Tales books. Like I got into that very recently, like in the past couple of years. So I've been digging through back issues for Savage Tales, and the series that's coming out right now is really good too, like the Savage Tales, where it's actually in the magazine format and it's got the not quite newsprint, but it's like that very rough uncoated paper that's black and white. I kind of want to dabble with doing like some short stories based off of Louis, where maybe wouldn't work for a comic, like a full length comic, but dabble with doing like some very short 500, 1,000 word short stories, and putting that as like back matter into this. Yeah, and originally for this comic, I don't know if I'm going to do it anymore, but there's going to be kind of another back matter of like a meta story where a film professor discovers the film that is The Devil Comes to Dance, which is the comic that we just read, and kind of goes into French Canadian film history or lack thereof, and coming across this film that was made during the time where there wasn't much going on in French Canadian cinema, and kind of building out the story, a meta story of this being a film and there being a lot of creepy coincidences that happened around it, and yeah, weird things happened to the director after it was made. Certain screenings of this film kind of ended up in tragedies. Yeah, we're playing around with that. I don't know if it's going to be in the final book, but we'll see maybe. So yeah, to answer your question, I think prose is going to play a little bit into the kind of backstory of this. I just don't know how yet, but I'm working on it.
The research side of things, over 200 tales, there's different mediums you can access this particular folklore on. And you mentioned that it was very difficult for you to find this information. How did you find it? Was it online? Did you have to go to Quebec itself to go through the archives of some dusty library? Or was it in an academic paper that you stumbled upon? What was that research process like?
Yeah, I mean, going to Quebec would be cool. I don't know. Yeah, that would be something I'd be interested in doing if somebody could direct me to any kind of archives. Or I've been looking up, folklorists who specialize in that, but I'm not having much luck. But yeah, I work at a university, so that helps a little bit where I have access to the library there. So I actually have a book here. One that I checked out. Folk Tales of French Canada by Edith Folk, who is folklorist from Ontario. So I've been reading a lot of her stuff and finding stories in there. Yeah, it's just been very carefully scouring the internet, going on to yeah, like the library. I found some periodicals from like 100 years ago that I've kind of perused, and I found some like neat little nuggets of, if not folk stories, but folk traditions, or just kind of weird little anecdotes that would be good to sprinkle into another story. Just mostly, or the library's been my best resource of going there and finding a book and then just kind of looking over the shelf of similar titles and just digging through whatever I can get my hands on. Hopefully, if this does well and it gets a little people's attention, maybe I'll have some more leads into talking to some Canadian folklorists or getting to access archives somewhere. That's kind of my next kind of research goal, or the next step is getting into contact with somebody that really, really knows this stuff well and getting to pick their brain.
It almost sounds like you need to do a secondary campaign specifically to gain access to go to Quebec specifically and gain access to those amazing
Yeah.
universities and libraries up there.
Yeah, I can probably swing getting over to Quebec because we go there to there's families out there, so I can get a drive out there. And I probably have maybe some place to stay. I just need to get a foot in the door, or if something like that exists. I don't know. I assume so.
Yeah, you'd have to, approach the many librarians that are left in Quebec, either at universities or around the cities
Yeah,
itself, and see. I think that would be an interesting like behind the scenes of this particular comic. Like you're adding extra value to it.
it's true. Yeah,
As something, and especially from a Canadian perspective, like this is something that we as Canadians don't know about. Like you said previously, it's like we don't promote ourselves as much as we should from a self promotion standpoint. But a lot of our history is behind libraries and the knowledge base that's there, and I think it's something that we should really explore.
yeah, totally. I'm with you. I'm working on it.
You've already talked about you want to make this into a larger arc overall across Canada, so I think that's a really good. This is a good starting point for that. Like if you went province by province.
Yeah, that's one of the things I didn't talk about. Like the character himself is meant to be a voyager. So if you don't know what that is, I'm still kind of learning about it myself. But they were fur traders. So they were the people, almost exclusively men, who would go out and trade with the indigenous people in Quebec, and they would go along. Obviously, they go by canoe. That's the main way they would travel and bring stuff back and forth. They kind of got all over the country. A lot of them are based in Quebec, but they'd get out east, and I think they'd get out as far as, Winnipeg, Alberta. So there's, yeah, definitely opportunities for him to get outside of Quebec and interact with other Canadian folktales from the Maritimes or from further west and stuff like that.
You have great starting point. I think that's wonderful to see, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really curious how this expands in the future.
Yeah, me too. There's that. I definitely think after this, I've got, even if this doesn't do as much as I'd want it to be, it's still gonna go on for a few more issues after this. Well, let's have to see how it does on Kickstarter if we want it to be like a really ongoing thing. Yeah, definitely a couple more stories that I really want to get out of this, no matter what.
Everyone has one person that inspired them on their path to where they are today. Who is that for you?
One person, I'm gonna say like maybe my partner. We're not married, but I call her my wife, my partner. We've been living together for 15 years or something, and I can be a not assertive person, I guess, or a not very active person. So she's the one that's been pushing me to, don't just sit around and wait things for happen to you. You have to go out and make things happen for yourself. Since I've met her, I've gotten, established a career. Before I was just working retail and kind of meandering about, and now I'm a professional writer. Like that's my day job, is I'm a writer. It's not writing comics or scripts or cool stuff, but it's writing. Just pursuing like my comic stuff as well. She's also a writer herself, and she's been working on her magnum opus for since I met her, basically. She hasn't given up on it yet. She's a perfectionist, so she keeps fiddling with it every few weeks and stuff. And yeah, my wife.
From a professional standpoint, you are a successful comic creator as well as a writer here, and you're creating an amazing new comic series, and I'm sure it will be a series in the future with Louis Debraz. So, from a professional standpoint, you're successful. Do you consider yourself personally successful?
Hmm. Oh yeah, this is something I talk with my therapist a lot. Yeah, I do. Yeah, yes, yes. Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot, and the fact that I am making my own stories, very stories that are very, very me, like stuff that I'm very interested in and told in ways that I would like to tell. And there's nobody else telling me, I can't do that. Yeah. So yeah, I find that very successful. Just the fact that I'm creating stuff that I enjoy and it's completely, comes from me and is a expression of my interests and my viewpoints, I guess, my worldview. So yes, I consider myself personally successful. Definitely not financially successful, but personally successful.
Yeah, we always want to be a little more financially secure, that's for sure. The reverse of success is failure. How do you deal with your failure?
Yeah, I guess just like the cliche answer of, you gotta learn from your mistakes and just keep going. The worst thing you can do is feel sorry for yourself and give up. And so, yeah, that's the typical answer everybody always gives is, learn from those mistakes. Failure is just success delayed or whatever the saying is, and keep going. Don't look back. Um, yeah, don't do it again. Whatever you did where you screwed up, don't do that again.
The younger generation is looking at your work and they're becoming inspired to be creative in their own way. And the fact that you have the younger generation with you, maybe you're going to inspire them on a creative path in the future. How can they inspire the generation that follows them?
I guess it goes back to my idea of personal successes. Yeah, just make things that matter to you and don't worry about financial, making it for other people or other factors. And yeah, just make art because that's what you like to do, and yeah, have confidence in yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Don't feel like you can't make art because it's something that's off limits to you. You are not worthy, anything like that. Yeah, make stuff yourself. Don't use ChatGPT or AI and make the thing, and you'll feel good about it. And yeah, do that.
If your life was a comic book, what would its title be? And what would its soundtrack be?
Wait, my comic has a soundtrack? What would its title be? I don't know. I think I'd go minimalist. It wouldn't have a fancy title. I like really long, kind of odd sounding titles, like Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. Like that's one of my favorite titles, but I think it's just called Matt, lowercase. Not even a capital M, just M-A-T-T, Matt. Soundtrack? I don't know. Like hate music questions because I'm a weirdo and I really don't listen to music. Like I never really listen to music. And I don't have a favorite band or a favorite artist. Um, I'm just gonna say, the soundtrack to the Batman, the most recent Robert Pattinson one. It would be very out of sync with how very not intense in my life is. But yeah, maybe that I don't know that opposition would be interesting. I don't know, I really like that soundtrack, so I'd listen to that.
Well, man, I do hate to say, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. One, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For those that want to support you and this campaign, where can we find you? How can we support you? And anything else you would like to promote?
Yeah, so the main way you can support me right now in the present is to a go to this Kickstarter campaign, which will probably be linked somewhere within the podcast. So yeah, it's in pre-launch now. It will be launching very soon, like this summer, um, later in the summer a little bit. But yeah, pre-launches are really, really, really important to a campaign. So if the more people that sign up to be notified when it goes live, the better I'll do my first day. And even if you're not interested in, you know, back in the book, but maybe kind of want to follow along with it, it doesn't hurt to give a pre to sign up. Well, even seeing a big number really helps other people kind of sign up, and it helps the algorithm on Kickstarter. So yeah, so that's the main one, and you can always find that stupid Matt at beastguy.social. I'll probably have a bajillion different posts there about this campaign right now as it's in pre-launch and when it goes live as well. And yeah, in terms of upcoming stuff, Yeah, just working on a bunch of different scripts now. Also working on another book with Ottavio Colino, who is the guy I did ID10T Era with. So we're probably going to be launching a book in October, fallish, kind of Halloween time, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be a mecha slasher. So think Mobile Suit Gundam meets Friday the 13th is kind of the vibe I'm going for. So that one will be really cool, coming out soon.
Oh, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You can, of course, find this interview and over 1,200 plus others literally on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TGT Media. The podcast you can find by searching Two Geeks Talking, TWO Geeks Talking, wherever you get your podcast, or twogeekstalking.podbean.com. And I'm on all the social medias at Kurt Sasso, at Two Geeks Talking. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.